How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Blue Shifting, and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry. And yeah, When They Cry is real. So we got some revelations last time. It was kind of so hard hitting that while I was like kind of immersed in it, it didn't really hit me until like later when I was thinking about it and like contemplating what the implications are of the events that we saw last time with Shion. And it not only does it make sense, it connects some dots that I was struggling with. I think I mentioned it in the last episode, but again, one of my biggest tells for this next bit is simply an observation I made in chapter 3. Like, someone pointed out in a comment that, like, it makes you wonder who was who if, like, Shion or Mion was participating in the other chapters. And I'm not sure about the first chapter. First chapters can tend to be almost like rough drafts. Like, they are the genesis of an idea, but the execution or the full fulfillment maybe is a result of the dedication that comes after seeing a positive response. I don't know if that's how it happens. A lot of time for a lot of writers, that's how it is. You'll hear a lot of writers talk about how like they write a first book of a series, and they by the time they get into book 2 or 3, they realize that they have a completely different direction that the story is going to end up going than how they thought. So I don't know if that's something that would happen with Higurashi, and I can't recall any details from the first chapter that would really be a clear indication that the switch happens. But I think we have knowledge in chapter 3 that it happens because, again, I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it last time. I'm pretty sure. I thought, like, no, maybe it wasn't even last time. It was before. How odd it was that when Satoshi called Mion, and then Mion redirected the call to Shion, and he specifically says, "Hey, tomorrow, can you make sure to take Satoko to the festival?" And then she's like, "Well, why aren't you going to be there?" He says, "No, I have something I have to take care of, but make sure she goes." And then down the line, chapter 3, when Keiichi says the same thing to Mion on the phone, she kind of has a pause moment. She's like, "What did you say?" And then he says that, and she's like, "So nothing. That was nothing. I just swear I heard that once before." That's very, like, from what we hear now, that's very clearly that was Shion we were talking to at the time. And there's no strong indication that like a switch would have needed to happen at that time in that storyline, but it did. And then another thing to point out too, like originally I was jumping to a conclusion of like, oh my gosh, maybe like the whole demonic, like really crazy-eyed Mion was actually just Shion, and Mion was actually fairly innocent. But we do kind of get that subverted because we see crazy-eyed Mion when she confronts Shion in the house. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think that Mion could have been and might be pretty destructive. I mean, she is willing to go along with Grandma and be willing to kind of officiate the terrible actions that the Sonozakis do, but Mion does seem to have a heart and is willing to and is very like kind and wants to be kind. She doesn't want to be the head of a criminal organization, I don't think, but she's willing to do it because it's her responsibility. Shion's kind of the crazy one, it seems. And it made me think, too, about how even in Chapter 3, if you recall, after the events of Watanagashi, all the other kids started talking about how they remembered Keiichi being up there. And again, I feel like at first I thought it was like, oh my gosh, is Keiichi in 2 different places at once? I started to think, though, that it was just they had, like, you know, Shion, who was always really good about thinking ahead, had convinced everybody to say the story to cover for him. But then you also saw that Higurashi and Mion/Shion had the crazy eyes, and they were talking about like trying to lure him out of town, and for who knows why. But like that's the idea is like I'm like 99% sure that was Shion, and I have to say 99% because who knows technically, but I really think it is. I think that we can retroactively apply that the events that are happening at the house right here are fairly consistent with the different timelines that we observe, that Shion has a confrontation with Mion where she snaps, imprisons Mion, and kills her grandmother. And now we're going to see the fallout of that. So, yeah, I'm sorry about the reminiscing. It's just I kind of want to get out there some of my thoughts and like at least organize them a bit better because I'm pretty sure most of this came out last part, but I feel like it was all caught up in the whole like, emotion. So like I don't think it made as much sense. It wasn't as concise. So, This is like they call this the Answers Arc for a reason. This is huge. What we just saw in the last episode, it puts so many interesting pieces into place. So very interesting. So without further ado, let's jump in and watch. I'm going to just call this the downward spiral, because I have a feeling it only gets worse from here. I mean, in this storyline in particular, Shion goes completely mad. And unfortunately, I get the feeling we're going to end up watching her systematically killing our friends. So that's going to be fun. No. This is going to suck. YouTube's going to hate these episodes. I was having such a happy dream. Satoshi-kun was in the dream. He was leading his normal everyday life. He was back on the baseball team. Irie and I acted normally around him because we knew that's how mature people should act. We welcomed him back as if he'd been here the whole time. Although his hits were although he hits well in practice sessions, he still doesn't do well in the real game. Come on, Satoshi-kun. 3 strikes already? I'm cheering for you. Then Satoshi-kun pouted as he mumbled. Felt tears pouring down my face. Oh. Sniff.
Satoshi-kun. Satoshi-kun.
Uh-huh. The happy dream faded out with my sobs. The harder I tried to focus on it, the faster it faded. Soon it was all gone. I could see the bright morning sun through the crack in the curtains. I was in Mion's room at the Sonozaki house. When did I come back? I was crouching in the corner of the room and crying. A dream is a dream. I wished I hadn't woken up. But one must wake up from a dream. We live in a world where there are no dreams. That's why we always wake up. But I wasn't sure if I was the only one dreaming in that dream, because I felt like Satoshi-kun was right beside me.
Satoshi-kun? 帰ってきてくれたんだ.
There was no reply. That was the rule. If it was Satoshi-kun, I wish it'd smile at me just once. But Satoshi-kun's presence faded away, as if he were never there to begin with. I heard the phone ring by the front door. Ah, that's right. I was the only one in the house now. I had to answer it. I got up to walk to the front door. I felt unsteady, so I put my hand on the wall to support myself. You remember in chapter 2, when Mion comes to school today, I think she's either A, running late, or she looks exhausted. I hardly got any sleep. It was like I had a bad cold. The phone continued to ring. I probably didn't have to answer it, actually. But it was still half asleep, and all I could think of was answering the phone.
Hi, Sonozaki desu.
Oh, remember how this is the mayor. And remember how the mayor gets vanished? I just had a thought. I thought he might get vanished because he's being scapegoated. That's what I thought was happening last time because of the way the conversation played out. And he might technically still be getting scapegoated after this, but I think she's going to accidentally reveal too much over the phone, and that's going to put her in a corner where she feels like she has to do something about it to prevent things from spiraling further. It was Uncle Kimiyoshi.
はい。昨日のが答えたみたいです。しばらく寝かせておこうと思います。
そうだね。ミオンちゃんもこれから学校だよね。じゃあ枕元に伝言を置いといてもらってもいいかな。
わかりました。何と伝言しましょう。
昨日の件で緊急に役員会を開くことになったんだけど、それをね、今日の夕方の5時から神社の集会所でって伝えてもらえる？
Oh wait, the Shrines Assembly Hall. I thought for a second it was going to be the Sonozaki hidden rooms. I was like, oh, we got problems with that. But no, if it's the shrine, like, okay. Yeah, I think I remember this meeting. This meeting was supposed to be about like the missing people, the victims of the Watanagashi.
わかりました。伝えておきます。
As soon as I put down the phone, it rang again.
はい、Sonozakiです。
早朝から申し訳ありません。
Oh.
葛西と申しますが。ミオンさんですか？
Now this gets awkward.
おはようございます。
葛西さんですか？おはようございます。
シオンさんはまだそちらにいらっしゃいますか？
I wasn't panicked, but I hesitated. I could tell him no, or I could play both Mion and Shion.
シオンはさっき顔を洗ってました。呼んできますね。
Interesting choice. I decided to play two parts. Went back and forth down the hall and picked up the phone again.
葛西、おはようです。
おはようございます、シオンさん。今日は登校されますか？
するわけないです。たるいし。
まあ、そんなとこだとは。
This will work for maybe a day.
それでシオンさん、沖宮へ帰る足はありますか？若いのに迎えに行かせますが。
君吉のおじいちゃんとかそのあたりに送ってもらおうかなと思ってます。
Oh gosh. Ooh, this is gonna be rough.
私のことは放っておいてくれて OK です。
親父さんから出席日数だけは守らせるように、私の小指のためにもご協力をいただきたいもんです。
まあ気が向いたら努力します。それより葛西、聞いてる？
聞いてるとは？
昨日のあ
れ。一応は恐ろしい話です。
これまでのたたりの犠牲者はさ、みんなダム戦争の時の戦犯だったわけじゃない？それが今年はちょいと路線が違う感じですよね。
Yeah.
どう思う？
さあ、私の預かり知るところの話ではありません。
Guess I wasn't the type to talk much. If it was about something complicated, he usually responded like that.
夕べの犠牲者の2人がどうしてお社様のたたりを受けたか。
いいえ。
実は夕べ、なんか綿流しの最中に最後殿にこっそり忍び込んだらしいよ。鍵を針金か何かで開けて。
Kasai was silent for a while. I held my breath while waiting to see how he responded. I expected him to say that he couldn't believe those people were chosen as victims or for sneaking into the storehouse. I expected him to say that it was just too unrealistic.
そうですか。バカなことを。
まあ、富武さんもそのあたりには疎いよそ者だったってことだね。
I went along with Kasai, but I felt disturbed on the inside. Kasai didn't wonder why breaking into the ritual storehouse would justify their deaths. I had known Kasai for a long time, which is why I knew there was a heavy meaning to what he said.
でさ、葛西、実は私もなんだけど。
入ったんですか
？I'm kind of impressed she's telling him this.
最後殿にシオンさんが？
高野さんに一緒にどうって誘われてさ、高野さんと富武さん、そして私と、ほら、前原屋敷に引っ越してきた圭一って男の子と一緒に4人で。
Oh boy. I heard Kasai sighing heavily. Even though he didn't say a word, I could tell he was shocked. I'd never known him to act this way before.
シオンさん、去年ああいう一件があったばっかりなんですよ。今度はどうけじめをつけられるおつもりですか？
Yeah, fingers.
去年が爪3枚だったから、奮発して5枚くらいいっとく？ごめん。でも、ふざけてるわけじゃないんだよ。そりゃ私だってやばいとこだって認識はあったよ。
Again, I'm not sure where this is gonna go, because now it's like out there.
少しは。でもさ、そこまでやばいことなわけ？
シオンさんは仮にも園崎本家に縁ある方です。今さらそんなこと言ってまかり通ると思いますか？
っていうか、だって私ずっと沖宮。ばあさんに嫌われて以降、Hinamizawaにはほとんど近づいてもいない。
Since she hated me, you're speaking about her in the past tense, careful.
その上、学園に閉じ込められて過ごしてたんですよ。そんなの私が知るはずないじゃない。
I heard another sigh from Kasai. The sigh told me my excuses would be useless.
シオンさん、私はあなたの味方のつもりです。極力シオンさんを信じてあげたいと思っています。
But...
ですが、いくら私でもかばいきれないことがあります。
Oh no.
第一、
Oh boy.
ごめん。お姉が来たから切ります。じゃね。
Click. I interrupted Kasai and hung up. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear Kasai reject me, he who had been my ally all my life. Oh, she's cracking like an egg.
チェ参ったなあ
I could hear the sound of cicadas. The sound made me feel like I was being cooked on a huge frying pan, making a sizzling noise. I couldn't help feeling remorseful. Now I knew that sneaking to the storehouse wasn't a laughing matter, but I really didn't know it at the time. Sure, the door was locked and they didn't want anyone to go in. Then why did they change the lock? What did they say? I think it was that Rika Chama said that the previous lock was too heavy for her, so she had it changed to that cheap one. That was how Takano-san broke in. If the heavy lock was still there, this wouldn't have happened. I slapped my own forehead. Huh. Then I took a deep breath. Gosh, she's really good at deflecting. Like, this is something she does a lot. She does this kind of like victim blaming / deflection where she shouldn't be the one at fault. She always has an excuse for her and everyone she really likes. But the instant, like, her choices have a bad effect, even if you can genuinely argue that, like, there was no way she could really know what the consequences of these actions would be, she's very quick to identify an enemy. And in the past, she's been willing to exact, like, physical vengeance against them. And now, knowing what we know and where this is going to go, it seems like she's going to use these bad feelings and blame as probably the foundation for the horrendous thing she's about to do. I had to calm down. What was the point of the fussing now? I'd already passed the point of no return. Yeah, you drove off the cliff a while ago. We're just falling now into the canyon. There was no use thinking otherwise. The hag was already dead. Even if she wasn't, she's now at the bottom of the well. Therefore, it was already past the point where I could just go cut my fingers off in apology. I felt so unstable. I'd walked on a fence around the swings at the park before, as if I was walking on a tightrope. It was fun because even if I fell, it was only a very short distance. It wouldn't have been fun if I were up really high. At the very moment, I was in fact already on a tightrope that was a lot higher than the fence at the park. And as soon as I took a step, the rope behind me would vanish. I couldn't step back because there was nothing behind me. That was, in short, the current situation I found myself in. Just standing in one spot, all I could do. Even if I never took another step, I'd fall if I wasn't careful. If I forced myself to walk, the danger would only increase. But if I didn't move, I'd fall eventually. I couldn't see what was ahead of me. There was no guarantee that I'd ever find firm ground. But if I stopped, there was only one fate waiting for me. I have to move onward. If staying here guaranteed death, then I'd rather try walking even if I die as a result. Even if there was a dead end ahead of me, which there definitely is, at least I tried my hardest. In general, I tried to be optimistic. I could accept my life not lasting particularly long, but I wouldn't go easily. I'd struggle as much as possible. I'd already killed the hag. For that, there could be no other punishment than death. I knew my life would end soon. In other words, I was actually already dead.
死人がなおもあがこうとしたら
Oh, that is a dangerous precedent.
そりゃ特攻あるのみでしょ
I really, like, it's not hard to see how we get where we get. I clenched my fist tightly as I muttered. Even if I had to die, I couldn't die easily. That was my chance to avenge Satoshi-kun. This was my chance. Who did it? For what purpose and why? I was going to investigate. I was going to question. I was going to expose. Yes, I was going to settle the score. I'd carry out the plan I came up with yesterday. I could hide the hag's death somehow. All I'd have to say is that she hadn't been feeling well since Watanagashi. I could do it all while pretending to be Mion. Just in case her friends at school became suspicious, maybe I'd start telling them I hadn't been feeling well either. In fact, I did feel groggy from my lack of sleep. When I became Mion, Shion would automatically disappear. I'd already told Kasai I'd snuck into the shrine storage, so he'd probably end up telling people that I was demoned away due to the curse of Oryou-sama. The last person I'd have to think about was the fourth one who snuck into the ritual storehouse, Keiichi Meibara. Maybe I can use him as bait to lure out the enemy. Ooh, that's fascinating. Sorry, Kei-chan, you're going to be my bait. I felt a little bad since I was starting to like him. With all that figured out, let's go to school. I'd gone to school as Mion before, so I knew how things worked. It was almost time to leave the house. But does she know about the... Yeah, okay. She is late.
待っててくれたわけ？先に行っちゃってもよかったのに。
Like, it feels so, like, on point. Like, are they just reusing the same lines? Because, like, I would totally do that to make sure it's consistent.
あれ、ミオン、お前、顔が赤くないか？息も妙に荒いし。
みーちゃん、ひょっとして具合悪くない？
Miranda put her hand on my forehead.
レナの手、冷たいな。みーちゃん、ちょっとだけど熱あるよ。そんな大したことないよ。半日もすればケロッと治っちゃうって。
本当に大丈夫かよ。あんまり無理するなよ。
あれ？ケイちゃん、気遣ってくれるの？嬉しいな。
I'd always thought he was a goofball, so I was a little surprised. I thought they would tease me, but they didn't.
無理しない方がいいと思うな。
They're also kind of freaked out by the whole... Because I think in this timeline, they learned earlier that what had happened, that people had like gone missing or died. I don't know if he knew quite... If Keiichi had knew who they were yet, but like I think they already kind of knew a little bit, so they're kind of on edge.
先生にはお休みだって伝えとくよ。大丈夫大丈夫。風邪薬も飲んだし、すぐに効いてくると思うから。
じゃあ行こうか。くれぐれも無理するなよ。って言いながら、時間！
走らないと、間に合わないスリリングな朝になっちゃったね。鈍った体にはちょうどいいカツかもね。走ろ！
Yeah, nothing better than like running when you're feeling ill.
それでは委員長、号令。あ、起立！気をつけ！
I made the same mistake before. I never learn, do I?
みーちゃん、本当に大丈夫かな？今日は具合悪そう。あら、そうなんですの。それはよくありませんわね。
It was a good idea to make them believe I was sick. Even if I did things differently from Mion, I had an excuse.
まあ、女の子には体調が悪くなる日もあるってことだな。
I forgot you said this. Shut up!
僕にはそんな日はないのですよ。ニパー。
There's the Nipa. We haven't had a Nipa in a while. Mion's friends kept each other occupied and left me alone. Keiichi Meibara. You might suddenly disappear one day, and I couldn't let that happen. That would be like letting a fish take the bait and swim away while I was fast asleep with a fishing pole in my hands. Oh my gosh! Right, she has a conversation with him at the recess, and she like asks him. She says, "Did you sneak into the storehouse?" And he freaks out because she's like, "How did you know?" Of course she knew. It's me. She was there. She. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so devious. I couldn't miss the moment the enemy took the bite out of Keiichi. I had to be very careful. But it was impossible to keep my eyes on him 24 hours a day. Spying on him at school like this wasn't good enough. Should I have him meet with Shion and let her explain he's in danger? Maybe we could set up a strategy together? I didn't think Keiichi realized how serious a crime it was to step into the ritual storehouse. I hadn't, after all. Since last year, all the incidents that related to the curse had probably been investigated in secret. People involved with the three families would know about the incident from last night, but Keiichi shouldn't know anything. If he knew where he stood now, he'd be more cautious too. That should make him aware of his surroundings, and maybe he wouldn't notice if anything odd took place. The teacher caught him sleeping, so she ordered him to go wash his face. He walked out into the hallway. I was sleepy too. I had to be alert, but I couldn't clear my mind due to the lack of sleep. I decided to go home early. Since I'd been pretending to be sick all morning, my request was approved. As I exited the building, I saw Keiichi washing his face.
やっぱケイちゃんはこっちの流しを選んだか。表の方が気分いいもんね。
あ、ミオンか。授業、サボるなよな。
It looked like it felt refreshing for him to wash his face with cold water. I washed my face too, but it didn't feel as good as it looked.
ミオン、風邪の方はいいのかよ。眠いのは寝不足じゃなくて、風邪薬の副作用なんだろ？
あはは、 実は内緒なんだけど、昨日はお祭りの後で親族の宴会に巻き込まれちゃってさ。
I mean, she's not wrong.
それで、エンドレスに。
Gulp. I pretended to drink with an invisible glass.
徹夜明けかよ
Shh.
心配して損した。
Keiichi exaggerated his reaction, but he still seemed worried.
じゃあな、俺は教室に戻るぜ。帰りは気をつけろよ。ふらふらして、側溝や用水路に落ちるなよ。
That's a great way to die. Keiichi turned around to go back to the classroom.
あ、そうそう、ケイちゃん。
I stopped Keiichi. He, in response, turned around.
なんだ
Here it comes.
変なことを聞くけど、深く考えないで答えてね。
そりゃ内容によりけりだな。
昨日のWatanagashiの晩さ、富武さんと高野さんに会わなかった？
Whew. I noticed Keiichi's body tense up. His reaction proved that he felt guilty about sneaking into the ritual storehouse. He was frightened that Mion Sonozaki might know about it. I guess this was enough to give him a certain impression of Mion Sonozaki.
富武さんと高野さんはわかるよね。ほら、ケイちゃん、お祭りの前日準備の時、シオンと一緒に4人でお話ししてたでしょ？
I could clearly see how dismayed Keiichi felt. He was trying to come up with an excuse.
さあ、どうかな。あったような、合わなかったような。
He is a terrible liar. He was both a bad liar and a bad actor. He wasn't really intelligent at all. Well, that would make him a suitable friend for Mion. He was just a brat, unlike Satoshi-kun. Although when it came to lying and acting, Satoshi-kun was about the same level. Maybe Keiichi could be credited for at least trying to tell a lie. Satoshi-kun wouldn't have even said anything. I didn't need to be thinking about him right now.
そう。じゃあもう一つ質問ね。
Here it comes.
同じく夕べ、シオンに会わなかった？
This is a very mean question. Keiichi was perplexed, as I'd expected.
それ、昨日も聞いたよな。俺、あったかどうかわからないって答えたと思ったぜ。
I'd asked him that yesterday. He must have meant that Mion Sonozaki had asked him that question. In other words, she asked him that after he'd left the storehouse and got back together with his friends. Darn you, Mion. When I asked her, she said that she had no idea we went to the ritual storehouse. Shoot.
そうだっけ？また改めて聞いたら、違う答えが返ってくるかなって思ってさ。
どうしてあったかどうかをそんなに気にするんだよ。
He was getting defensive. Keiichi could hide his panic as he flared up at me.
大したことじゃないの。富武さんと高野さんと、シオンとケイちゃんをね、悪く言ってる人たちがいるの。
Oh.
何が悪いんだかはよく聞いてないんだけどね。
Keiichi was really perplexed now. This wasn't fun at all. But it could still be an interesting game. Gosh, she's so twisted!
私、ケイちゃんが悪いことをするなんて信じてないから。
Mm-hmm.
でも、ちょっとだけ聞いてみたかったから聞いてみたの。不愉快な思いをさせてごめんね。
I made sure Keiichi felt a sense of crisis, then left. Nobody can tell us apart. We're Mion and Shion, perfect twins. Notebook, page 186. When I returned to the Sonozaki house, I saw a woman with an apron on. It was a housekeeper. Her name was Shimiko-san. The hag had a few housekeepers who took care of the chores around the house.
ミオンちゃん、本当によかった。
ありゃ、シミコさん。何かご用で？
Today was her turn to come help out at the house. She'd arrived, but the gate was locked and she couldn't get in. She'd called, but there was no answer, and she'd been standing there, not knowing what to do.
バッチャですね。Watanagashiの祭りで面白くないことがあったみたいで。
そうですか。
Shimiko-san tried to remember if she had done something wrong.
別に無視してるんじゃなくて、寝込んでるだけなんです。夕べ、だいぶ遅くまでカリカリしてたから、多分まだ起きられないんじゃないでしょうか。知ってるでしょ？一度機嫌を損ねたバッチャが、どれだけの期間機嫌が悪いかを。
Yeah, that sounds like me.
そうですね。困りましたね。
しばらく顔を見せない方がいいと思います。シミコさんに悪気がなくても、 バッチャは何かと咎めてくるに違いありませんから。こういう時は私に任せといてください。
そうですか？それは助かりますけ
ど。シミコさん、申し訳ないんですけど、他のお手伝いさんにもしばらく来なくていいと伝えてもらっていいですか？
This is a freaking delicate operation you're putting together, Shion.
バッチャの機嫌が治ったらこっそり電話しますから。しばらくそっとしてあげてください。
Shimiko-san bowed and left on her bicycle. Anyone who ever experienced Granny's wrath would understand. I headed into Mion's room, set her alarm clock for 2 p.m. and crawled into her bed. I needed to recover quickly. I had to be sharp, calm, and cool-headed. School should be out about 2 p.m. Maybe I'd get in touch with Keiichi. I'd have to call him. There would also be staff meeting in the Furude Shrine Assembly Hall in the evening. All the leaders of the 3 families, their relatives, and the town council members would gather at this meeting. They were all authority figures in Hinamizawa. I'd be attending in place of the hag who was sick. I had to worry about the rest when I got there. People should notice that Mion and the hag were missing for a long time. I didn't need to worry. I had plenty of time. I checked the alarm once more, then fell asleep as if someone had switched me off. It's kind of nice. I think I've talked about this before. I used to struggle to get to sleep. Like, it would always take forever and forever. But then, like, I got really sick. I don't know if you guys remember that, because I was able to managed to record throughout the whole time I was sick. Because it was like the only thing I could do. But I was sick for a long time, and it was basically all I could manage. It was like also kind of what my lifeline was for keeping me sane. But afterwards, I gained the superpower of being able to do this, where if I'm tired and I'm ready to go to bed, I'll lie down, put something. I don't have to, but it's nice. It helps when I can put on a little bit of music or something, and then cuckoo, all done, ready to go. It's very nice. It's very nice to be able to sleep and just like to be able to go down, just boom, you're out, just to sleep. Oh no.
もしもし。
園崎の妹の方です。こんにちは。
Yeah, the phone call.
今はお時間大丈夫ですか？
シオンか。ミオンと同じで、今日は寝不足で寝込んでるんじゃないかと思ったぜ。
え？ひょっとしてお姉、早退ですか？お姉らしい。
Keiichi had no idea that the Mion he saw earlier was actually me. He didn't notice when we talked in person, so there's no way he would notice on the phone. I never knew that playing 2 roles would be so fun. To feel such enjoyment in the game of life or death, maybe I was getting used to the situation. Or maybe my senses had gone numb. Probably the latter.
ごめんな。ちょっと親が電話待ちをしてるんで、そんなに長話はできないんだ。何の用だ？
お話ししたいことがあったんですけど、長電話が無理じゃ仕方ないですね。
じゃあさ、会って話をしないか。ついでに図書館にも案内してもらえるとありがたい。
図書館って、駅前の私立図書館ですか？別にいいですよ。バイトのついでってことで。
We decided to meet in Okonomiya. It wasn't easy to get there from Hinamizawa, but I had to hurry. I couldn't run into Keiichi as he was heading there himself. I recalled that the key to the hag's motorcycle was in her secret drawer. She has a motorcycle. Wait a minute. That took a second to sink in. The hag usually got driven around for public events, but when she just had her own errand, she rode her motorcycle. Keiichi, I assumed, was going to ride his bicycle. I'd try to get to Okonomiya before he did. Keiichi arrived quite a bit later than me. Motorcycles are faster, after all. There were hardly any traffic lights to worry about on the way here, either.
ミオンと違って、シオンは待ち合わせ時間を守るな。しみじみ。
お姉を標準にされると、いろいろと困ります。
少しフラフラしてないか？お前も昨べは寝不足だろ？隠しても無駄だぞ。で、学校を早退したに違いない。
残念でした。私はそもそも今日はずる休みしてますので。私、お姉より容量いいですから。
おいおい、学校をずる休みするのを容量いいとは言わないと思うぞ。
It is when you would have to go home anyway.
じゃあ、先に用事を片付けます？時間もそんなにないですから。図書館へ行くんですよね。
ああ、頼むよ。お袋の借りてる本の返却期限が、図書館は遠いのか？
すぐ近くですよ。
I meant it when I said that we didn't have much time. I had to hurry a little. I was just going to talk to him on the phone, but ended up coming all the way to Okonomiya. After our talk, Keiichi would slowly head back to Hinamizawa on his bicycle. I'd have to rush back there while making sure I didn't run into him. Otherwise, I couldn't make it in time for the meeting. Maybe I could be a little late, but since I needed to hear everything that was discussed, I didn't want to be. This was Shishabone Public Library. It was sizable, filled with a collection of moldy, smelly books. But they didn't have air conditioning, and it was quiet. It was the perfect place where you wanted to be alone. After Satoshi-kun disappeared last year, I came here a lot to think about various things. This was where I first met Takano-san. I didn't want to run into her with Keiichi in tow. But then I remembered. She was already dead. The first floor of the building was occupied for government offices. The library itself was on the second floor, so we had to walk up a huge staircase to get there. I tasted the cold air in my skin as soon as I walked through the automatic door. Unlike outside, it was very quiet in here. The room temperature was both comfortable and suitable for books. I could smell the scent of old pages.
どこの図書館も似たようなもんだな。
They do, actually. It's kind of funny. Keiichi walked up to the return table after he said so. Because it was a weekday, there was hardly anyone around. It was really very quiet. I was going to chat about some ordinary things, and then move on to the main subject. After Keiichi returned the books, I invited him to the inner section of the library. Keiichi knew Mion well, but he didn't know me at all. He showed an interest in our life story. That was exactly what Takano-san told me about the true history of Hinamizawa a year ago. I was about to tell Keiichi about things that were very similar to that. God have a sense of irony?
言われてみれば、例のおもちゃ屋も親類の人が経営してるみたいだったな。そういえば、エンジェルモートも親類の人が経営してるんじゃないのか?
I told him the reason why the Sonozaki family is so powerful in this area. I assumed that since Keiichi came from the city, there was a good chance he couldn't even begin to understand how one old family could literally control an entire area. Unless I explained to him how powerful the Sonozaki family was, he wouldn't understand what kind of danger he was barreling toward him.
特に金融、不動産関係は強いですね。あと、商工会議所の役員も何割かは、Sonozaki姓かその親類がついてます。
That's still wild, though, that they're that involved.
沖宮一帯を評伝に、市議会議員と県議会議員にもSonozakiがいますし。
ちょっと待て。なんだかすごい話になってきたぞ。
Yeah, understatement of the year.
沖宮の町中に親類が経営する店があって、特に金融、不動産に強い。しかもその上、商工会議所の役員の何割かが親類で、しかも地元選出の議員までいて。
Keiichi could count it with his fingers. He was clearly surprised to hear about all the Sonozaki family. It seemed he was flexible enough to accept even something that sounded outrageous to him. He was starting to understand things, although slowly. The way he viewed Shion Sonozaki was changing little by little too. That should be enough to background information. Now I could go over to explain why about Mion Sonozaki, the successor. Then I'd change the subject, like Takano-san did with me. I'd go to talk about the curse of Oryou-sama, then the series of mysterious deaths.
ひょっとして、Sonozaki家って、この辺り一帯じゃ、すごいんじゃ。
Oh, you can hear his little brain gears turning. Oh, I forgot you show up.
すごいんです。
A fat man with a cigarette suddenly cut into our conversation. Oishi? Why was he here?
どうも、こんにちは。今日はデートですかな？羨ましいですね。
そうだと思ったら邪魔しないでほしかったですね。おいさん。
What timing. It couldn't be a coincidence. I knew this man too well. He was crafty, sly, and clever. His presence here can't just be a coincidence. Of course, he's investigating. They were ready. Did he see us somewhere in town and follow us? Heck, he might have followed you from leaving from Hinamizawa. Oh, he probably did. He probably has been tracking her movements now. But why? Did he need something from me, Keiichi, or perhaps both of us? From which I could guess, I didn't think it was me he wanted something from. It was almost like he was trying to keep Keiichi away from me. Oishi was aware I gave false testimony to protect Satoshi last year. Maybe he didn't think he could talk to Keiichi if I was around. Why did Oishi need to talk to Keiichi? It must be about the incident from yesterday. I'm sure there were plenty of plainclothes officers at the festival, so they could have seen who was the last victims. In other words, Keiichi and me. But Oishi knew that I was hard to deal with. That was why he was focusing on Keiichi at present. Why did he have to show up at a time like this?
前原さんでしたよね。あなたもタフな人ですね。園崎姉妹を二股かけるなんて。
Oh gosh.
いや、そんな、二股だなんて。
Keiichi looked at me, hoping for assistance. He blushed. The way he panicked reminded me of Satoshi-kun. That aside, he wasn't going very well. I wish he might even start talking about my relationship with Satoshi-kun. I didn't want him to, nor did I want Keiichi to have any preconceptions. Oishi took a quick glance at me. His eyes told me something. He was purposely talking about things I'd rather not talk about. He was basically telling me to leave, or he'd continue on to something that was worse than what they were currently talking about. He didn't use words, but his eyes clearly communicated that anyway. Dang, that fat weasel.
あ、ごめんなさい、ケイちゃん。私、もうバイトの時間なんです。
あ、そうなのか?
I realized that I wouldn't achieve anything like this, even if I stayed longer, so I used my part-time job as an excuse to leave. Oishi looked at me and grinned. Dang it. He won today, but I'll win big. I'll win next time.
そういえば、今日はシオン、何か話があるんじゃなかったのか? なんなら。
うん、また今度。あ、バイトが終わったら電話します。夜なら電話大丈夫ですよね。
ああ、大丈夫だと思う。
じゃあ、今夜電話しますので、その時に。じゃあ。
There we go. Heading out. Alright. Time for the meeting. But I think I might end here. I know it's a bit of a shorter episode, but two things. Number one, I imagine this meeting is going to get crazy. And I think that we're going to have some things happen after the meeting that's going to go wild. Because, like, I'm pretty sure after this meeting, the mayor goes missing. And I bet it's because after the meeting, they talk about how he was walking home from the meeting and then he just vanishes. What if he vanishes because he then goes to visit the Sonozakis and then he goes into the back rooms, finds Mion back there, and Shion has to take him out? That's going to be freaking intense. And it's also really late. That's part number two. Is like, it's unfortunate, but like, I'm trying to squeeze this in because I have a crazy weekend this weekend. And I'm starting to wonder if I'm going to be able to record trails this week, because that's the hardest thing to record just because of like the time it takes to record. And this weekend is just packed. I'm going to try my best, but I have no idea if I'm going to be able to pull it off. But I just squeezed this recording in whenever I could, but I really need to get going to bed. So I feel like it's not the longest I've ever done, but I feel like it's good. It's not too terribly exciting, but I think we're going to start into some exciting stuff now. So we'll do the second half of this chapter and maybe a little bit more next week. I hope you don't mind. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your patience and just your support. It means the world to me. I'm doing my best, and despite how stressful a week I've had, this is always something I look forward to, even if I'm exhausted by the end of recording, just because it's like, the last thing I do in my day. I'm just grateful I get the chance to do it. So thank you so much. And thanks for being willing to like deal with my pacing and deal with like the way I make content here. It's been really fun though. Thank you so much. And for your support and like the time I get to see and talk to you all, it really just means so much. I'm really grateful that you all are here, and I'm looking forward to continuing to share these wonderful stories with you in the coming weeks. So thank you so much. And until the next video, watching me, have to see me in next. I'll see you there.